Hey there, folks, Because I'm Carlos podcast number 23. So, this one is going to be another one of the audio predominantly ones. However, if you're on the YouTube channel, you are going to get some video. I'm going to do a little bit of screen share, but I'm also going to include this in an audio version on the podcast feed that I have through Anchor. So, in case you want to listen to it that way, I will describe things a little bit to you and say them out loud. So, hopefully, that helps from the audio perspective on it. As always, I will include a link to the YouTube channel and the YouTube video in the description of both versions so that if you are in the audio version and you want to go and actually see the thing that I'm pointing out, then it'll give you an opportunity to do so. So, I will give you both of those options. So today I wanted to kind of follow up, similar to my last episode. The last episode I focused on Razor Poker and talking about some nostalgia in that. This one's going to go a little bit into that, not quite in the same way, but I want to talk about wrestling cards a little bit. And part of the reason for that is because that's been a little genre and category that I've been kind of delving back into the last several months. I've talked about it off and on in the channel a little bit here and there. Also in the live streams that I do on my YouTube channel on Fridays evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I've said for the summer, but probably we're just going to leave it. 8 p.m. has been working really well for us, so I really am a fan of doing that. Predominantly, though, on the live stream and on my videos and everything, I stick to sports cards because that's mostly my bread and butter, and that's the majority of the collection. However, I'm no stranger to wrestling cards. I did collect a little bit in the 90s, but it's one of those things where the variety of it wasn't quite there for me at the time. Obviously, in the years since, we become more and more aware of little regional issues and fun little nuanced things. But I stepped away from it for a while, never really collected that heavily. I did buy packs of stuff a little bit here and there throughout time, but then I kind of came back into it because it just offered a bit of an opportunity to collect something off the beaten path. I've got my standard basic pillars of my collection, but stuff like that and stuff like the poker cards and all that, they offer a little bit of variety and fun for me. So at this point, I've built up a nice little shoebox of different wrestling cards in different categories. I may do a video on the channel where I'll go through kind of where the PC is sitting at now because now it's I built it up a little bit, so now there's a variety, a lot of autographs, some different things, and it might be interesting to go through and rummage through the box a little bit here and there. But the point of this video is I wanted to talk about a couple of different things. So first thing I want to do is if you're checking out the YouTube version, you're seeing a YouTube channel on the screen here that I'm showing for everybody. It's Wrestling with Cards, and that's hosted by Zane Morning. So I'm going to leave a link to this in the description of both variants so that you can check it out. There isn't a lot in terms of YouTube channels that really cover wrestling cards fairly extensively. This would be one that I would consider. As far as media in general, there are some podcasts that do talk about it a little bit as well, so I'll recommend one to you, and I'll probably include a link to that in the description. There's the Card Foundation podcast, so there are a handful. But part of the reason for that is that wrestling is very much a niche. It really is. It's a niche form of entertainment. It does have a lot of viewership. Millions of people do watch over the course of, the week. But at the same time, it's still very much a niche thing. And when it comes to cards, it's very lightly, it's lightly collected relative to other things. The information is slow to trickle out. And there is just as much in any other version of collecting, and this is kind of the point of this episode that I want to talk about, is there is a very heavy dose of irrationality to it. A lot of things don't make sense. And I did that video a while back where I talked about the WB Prism thing, where I said, look, there is going to be some silliness about this. And I used examples, and I talked about, think about how the Prism Gold prices are going and how crazy they're going to be and how crazy they ended up being and how crazy the box prices were relative to Topps Chrome, which has their own version. So for them, it was the black refractor out of 10 versus the Prism Gold out of 10. And the price discrepancy you would see, you would be able to buy a black refractor for a fraction of a fraction. Price-wise in a lot of cases. And it just didn't make sense. It was kind of silly. And I'm going to give you another example of that today, which is on a different product. It's not quite an apples to apples kind of comparison, but it's kind of a fun one because it's another example of where you see these big gaps. And sometimes they don't make sense. And by sometimes, I mean they never make sense. And it's kind of a fun thing. And also I wanted to touch on a little bit because one of the pieces of news in wrestling that came up the last several weeks is Vince McMahon announcing his retirement. Now, one thing I'll say to you is, as a longtime wrestling fan going back into the 90s, so I was starting to watch wrestling back towards the tail end of the first run of Hulkamania, so starting maybe around 90, 91, and, continuing, for the most part, predominantly into today. It's one of those things where I was watching pretty consistently. I kind of got turned off WWE maybe about 5 or 6 years ago because I got fed up with a lot of the stuff they were doing. I'm still pretty fed up with it. I'm just not a fan of the supporting the McMahon family in anything. So while I'll give Vince credit for a lot of things he did, I'm also not going to give him too much credit because honestly, he is as much a cause of a lot of things I don't like about WWE as much as anybody else. And honestly, I don't feel like I would want to support anything he does. His retirement doesn't actually remove him from the picture fully. I will say, though, the likelihood is the WWE product will improve. And I think from everything I've heard, because I don't watch the show actively anymore, but I do keep tabs on what's going on. From everything I've seen, it's already showing little signs of improvement. Now, I'm also going to play this into the card angle here in a minute, so stick with me on this one. When you got a big seismic shift on that, it is going to have a potential impact. But the question is, and this is where the wrestling card angle comes into it, wrestling cards are an interesting space in the sense that, again, irrationality, but also how things apply doesn't really work. And I guess the analogy I'll give you here is when you think of sports cards, a lot of times you try to use statistics, you try to do different, but you're going to have anomalies, you're going to have weird things. It's one of the things that card collectors like to complain about. It's like, well, why is PSA worth so much more than the other one? It's like mostly marketing, honestly. And then the market acceptance, and once the market accepts it, that becomes the standard. And once people accept it as the standard, then we move on. That's a whole debate for another day, and I've had it enough times on the live stream to cover several lifetimes. Just understand that it's one of those things. It doesn't mean it can never reverse, by the way. It certainly can, but it's going to require a lot in order to reverse that much market sentiment. But in wrestling cards, when you're doing a lot of these things, the market sentiment is really based on, as much as anything else, kind of ignorance of everything else. A lot of the folks that are collecting these things, they might understand a certain lane pretty well, but then they don't completely understand what else is available. They struggle to compare things, and there's a lot of gaps in terms of how things fit. That Prism thing was an example. It's like you literally had a card of a similar person, numbered to the same, and you had these gigantic price gaps on nothing more than the Prism brand. But at the same time, it didn't make sense because it's not like Topps Chrome is a bad brand. And with Panini gaining the license and then immediately being a lame duck as far as the license is concerned, unless Fanatics buys them, which is certainly a possibility. But regardless, they became kind of a lame duck almost immediately before they'd even released their first product. And obviously right now this week, WWE Select is coming out, which, by the way, I checked out some box breaks on this, and also it plays into the ignorance thing I was talking about. So I'm covering a lot of stuff, guys, so I know I may be all over the place, so stick with me on this. I will try to reconcile everything by the end of it. But one of the things I watched when I started watching some box breaks of the WWE Select Prism WWE product is, again, I love the look of the cards, even with all the silly parallels and stuff. I do enjoy that. I do feel like the checklist is very deep in terms of having a lot of stuff, but it does have legends and things, which I like. So I was enjoying watching a lot of those box breaks. The price point on it is a little bit better. I'd still struggle if I'd want to buy a box of it, but it is interesting. I do like what's contained inside of it. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting, though, in watching some of those box breaks, is you did get a taste in terms of seeing how different individuals that were opening them either had a lack of understanding of the product, so they would struggle maybe to pronounce certain characters' names, or they might not know who they are. Even some of the legends, they might not exactly know who they are. And other times, it would be not a lack of knowledge in the product, it would be a lack of knowledge in cards in general. And I'll give you kind of the most extreme, but kind of funny example. I'm not making fun of them too much, but I did find it hilarious. I was watching the box break, and they were very enthusiastic, and it was kind of a fun break to watch. It was a one box break, and they were kind of opening, or it might have been two boxes, but regardless, they were opening a couple of packs there. And as they were going through it, they were very enthusiastic. They were loving the cards and checking them out and everything, and it was good, and putting them in the penny sleeves and all that good stuff. But then at one point, it stopped like dead in its tracks when this person was perplexed. They were flummoxed. They were looking at this, thing incredulously. They couldn't wrap their head around it. It was a decoy card. Like at first, I think he thought it was a redemption card, and then he was just trying to get his head around. It's like, oh, but this isn't like a jersey card. It's like not a redemption. It's a decoy. It's a little white card, designed to keep people from trying to pick out the memorabilia card out of the packs. But he had never seen a decoy before. Kind of tells you the experience level of the person. And again, I'm not meaning to to call them out or anything. I'm not going to mention the channel, but I just got a kick out of it. I thought it was very funny. But he was very enthusiastic. He seemed to enjoy himself. So good on him. Hopefully he learns what a decoy card is, and it'll advance his knowledge of the collecting realm. But the point is, I'd see a lot of that. I'd see folks that would struggle with pronunciation of fairly common characters and stuff. It's like, well, you don't really watch the product, fair enough. And other ones would struggle with basic card things. They just wouldn't understand what any of the parallels were. You can look on the box, it says what the parallels are. Or you can look them up as you go. And there'd be just a lack of understanding. But again, the enthusiasm was there. So credit to them. My point that I'm making with it is that that's going to be another product from Panini that's going to be very interesting. AEW obviously came out with this product, and I've talked about it, and I did the interview with Billy Cilio on there. I'm hoping to bring Billy back, hopefully, when we actually get closer to AEW Spectrum. Unfortunately, we're still waiting for AW Spectrum, so I might have to reach out and be like, okay, so we're getting close on that. Like, it's one of those things. It's been one delay after another. But the 2022 AEW product is scheduled to come out in September, so it's going to be like, kind of interesting because I already see pre-orders. I haven't decided if I'm going to pre-order a box or not. But regardless, as I kind of re-delved into the wrestling side card of the pool, I completely butchered that. You understand what I'm saying. Pools, you get the analogy. The point is, as I delved back into that whole segment, it was very quick for me to get up to speed on it. And of course, being able to quickly see, and I'm going to be very hesitant about this. I'm going to be very clear. I'm not going to call it an opportunity because there's a real possibility that what I'm going to describe and show you, there may be a time, the market may never catch up on this one. And it's so basic, it's so simple, it's inexplicable in a lot of ways, but it is also understandable because the market likes what it likes, and sometimes you can't explain your way out of it. So I'm going to explain to you that one piece of that, and I'm also going to play into one thing that also makes that wrestling market very complex, in that a lot of things that you'd think would make a lot of sense don't apply because it is an entertainment product. And because it's an entertainment product, you can't look up somebody's stats. I can't show you their war as much as I love war. I can't show that to you and say like, okay, they're performing really well based on this. Somebody could be really popular and be barely featured on television. Somebody could be being featured on television and struggle to get any traction at all, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. And somebody could have a title and it could mean nothing. Somebody else could not have a title and be extremely popular and their cards sell for a ton of money. It's one of those things where it's sometimes hard to pick up on what people gravitate towards, what is going to resonate and what isn't, which characters are going to strike with people more than others. One of the things that is pretty much a standard trope of professional wrestling right now, especially in WWE, is that a lot of the women sell for a lot of money. Now, that could be for a variety of reasons. I'm going to leave it to you to speculate on what those are, but certain ones are extremely popular and they tend to sell very well. Conversely, some of the male talent who do well, in terms of actually on the show and being featured, really don't move the needle at all. So it's one of those things where it depends. Other ones, absolutely, they do. And if they get a little bit of attention, boom, it suddenly bolsters their market. An example, I'll give you this, and a testament to the difference between the Vince McMahon run WWE and the current version that now Triple H is going to be running, WWE creative and everything, is the return. And part of the reason I brought up the wrestling with cards here to start off with in this discussion was that Zan Morning is a Karrion Kross super collector. Well, on my Instagram page, the most recent one, I put in a picture of two cards. One is Scarlet and one is a Karrion Kross autograph. So autographs for both. I happen to have those because one of the sub-collections I like collecting is ex-WWE folks. Well, obviously, they're back to being WWE folks now. And there's a real possibility that they may get an opportunity now to get a much more promotion, to be featured already in their return. They're being featured prominently, potentially in kind of a main event-ish slot. So if we're analyzing this, here's the question. This is an entertainment product. So attention, promotion, all these things matter. But how is the audience going to resonate with it? I don't have the answer to that question. But let's say it plays out the way it potentially could. It does feel like they're being moved in a position to potentially challenge for one of the titles, the big title, against the star, Roman Reigns. And if that was to come to pass, if Karrion Kross was to defeat Roman Reigns in whatever context that ends up being, and is to become a champion and wins one of the two titles that Roman Reigns currently carries at the time that I'm recording this, if that happens, in theory, he would become a feature player. In theory, on one of the two shows, he would be featured prominently, would be in a kind of a main event type slot. That would obviously bolster his attention. So here's the question. Does that impact his market? In theory, it should. How much it's going to impact the market? No idea. No way of knowing whatsoever. And it is almost impossible to predict because even trying to compare him to other people is virtually impossible. Each case is its own. And the analogy that I would use to you in trying to predict something like this is that it's like trying to figure out how far you can throw a football in space. So it's one of those things where like, okay, how far can you throw a football at sea level? Okay, it's X. Awesome. Now you're in space. It's basically zero gravity. But what planet are you on? Are you on the moon or are you on a planet? How much gravity is it? So you can try to calculate it. It's one of those things like it's almost impossible though. When you get up there, are you going to be wearing this thick spacesuit that is going to prevent you from throwing it as hard as you can? Maybe. Is it a situation where maybe, you grab a different football? Like in this instance, trying to figure it out is literally a moving target because, okay, so you think you figured it out. Oh, by the way, I'm giving you a different football. Oh, by the way, I'm giving you a different ball to throw. You're not throwing a football anymore. You're throwing a baseball. You're throwing a basketball. And every single time it's a different calculation and it's a moving target. Now, I wanted to give you an example. So like I said, the Karrion Kross one will be an interesting experiment to see what happens because if he does get that additional promotion and he does get a title and all that stuff, it's entertainment. We're not getting statistics. Wins and losses don't technically matter, but it's one of those things where it's hard to say what people will resonate with or whatever. But he could become a champion and maybe no one cares. Maybe it barely moves the market. Or he becomes a champion, all of a sudden everybody rushes to go pick up all his cards. So, and they could double, triple, quadruple in price, and Lord knows. But I want to give you an example of like a recent thing that I was looking at, similar to kind of that Prism Topps Chrome thing, and it's kind of a recent one that I want to show you. So I want to show you this here. I want to fixate specifically on this. So this is a card, and I'm going to describe it to you for the audio version, but in the video version you can see it. It's a 2021 Topps WBE Undisputed card of Riddle, so Matt Riddle, a gold parallel card out of 10. This sold on eBay. So this sold in the middle of July, so about a month ago, give or take, from the time I'm recording this. And it sold in auction for $20.30 US. So nothing too crazy. Now, I want to compare this. I can't do apples to apples because it's not exactly the same, but I want to kind of go back to it. Now, I want to do a comparison. Remember about the shiny stuff. I talk about the shiny stuff. Well, let's talk about a gold refractor. So a gold refractor from 2021, same year, Matt Riddle, same person. So this gold refractor from Topps Chrome, those are out of 50. So the out of 50, Matt Riddle, 2021, same year, same character, out of 50, best offer $30. Again, best offers could be its own thing. This was on July 13th. The other one was on July 10th. So it's right around the same time period. A 2020 Topps Chrome, same time period, $37.37. Fixed price sale, actual sale price shown. I don't know why they went 37, but there you go. Another one out of 50. Another one out of 50 right around the same time. These are all in July, so same month. $39.99. Basically a fixed price sale. Now in auction, who knows what it would have gone for, but you're getting my point. These are all parallels out of 50, all three of them. Two of them are 2021, two variations of that, and one of them is a 2020. Same character, same time period, same month, sales. Shiny, Topps Chrome refractor, gold refractor, out of 50, sells for more than in a Topps Undisputed out of 10. So it's one of those things like, well, why would, what's the difference? What's the issue? It's like, well, what's with this undisputed product? Well, it's one of those things where like, I can understand it to a point, but if we're just doing apples to apples to the best of our ability, this card is rarer. This card is out of 10, same person. If you're a collector of this person, this is a tougher card for you to find, but it's sold much cheaper. Now, if we had put it by now best offer, would it have gone for more? Probably. That tends to be the case with a lot of this stuff. But you can see the discrepancy. The out of 50s were going for 50% more, and in one case, nearly double the amount from the same year, sold in the same month on eBay. So it's one of those things that's kind of interesting. Now, if you're not familiar with the Undisputed product, 2021 Undisputed, it is a $450 per box product right now on something like Steel City Collectibles. So I'm showing as an example. If I wanted to buy a pack of this, or a box, I should say, that has 10 hits per box and 8 guaranteed autographs, an autograph relic, etc., these cards, this parallel card is not really a hit per se. However, neither is the gold refractor technically. You've got autographs in that product, and it's one of those things. But obviously, it's a parallel. But you've got one parallel that sells pretty well, and you've got another parallel that actually went really cheap. So if you're collecting this person, you're collecting Riddle in this case. This is a $450 box product. The Topps Chrome wasn't that expensive at that time. And again, Prism obviously went for a ton, and obviously has come back down to earth as far as that's concerned. But the gold Prisms still go for a pretty penny. It's one of those things where I said it a little bit earlier. It's like, if you want rationality, this ain't it. Like, technically speaking, if I'm a collector, this out of 10 would certainly be a desirable card for me. It's not as exciting. Like, I'm not going to pretend it is, because if I go back to this card, and I'm going to try to see if I can pull up a picture, there's really no like extra shine or anything special to it. I'll describe it to you. It's a nice looking card. It's a thick card because I believe they're in thicker stock. But it's one of those things, the gold is not like a special foil or anything as far as I can tell. I believe it's just a slight, it's a tint. You can definitely tell it's a gold card, quote unquote, but it's not as exciting, quote, visually as a refractor would be. And, fair enough, fair value on that. But it's one of those things where we're talking a Topps product, a super high-end Topps product, and we're talking a fairly decent product. Undisputed is a high-end product, and Topps Chrome is like, kind of a middle-ish product as far as that's concerned. It's certainly not the highest, and it's certainly not the lowest. It's not base Topps. But you were able to get this out of 10 for a bargain in the same month. So if you're a Riddle collector, you were able to buy both cards, but you had to pay more for the Topps Chrome. It's just kind of an interesting dynamic the way that works out. And it's one of those things, I can't explain it to you. $450 a box is what it would cost you to buy the box today. And there's no guarantee that you'll be able to pull that card. You might not pull the base card, certainly not necessarily the gold out of 10. So it's kind of interesting the way that works out. So I just thought it was kind of fun, kind of an interesting little thing. Again, markets like that are irrational. Is that going to change? No idea. The idea is always, well, if, as more market participants come in, as they get more sophisticated, but the sports card market has told me the sophistication is not necessarily a thing that comes. Will there be changes to it? Hard to say. But it has been kind of fun to dig back into this world. Bringing it back over to sports cards. I think it's a good kind of analogy to remind people that there are a lot of folks that are still new to this. There are a lot of folks that are still trying to learn their way through it. The example with the guy perplexed by the decoy card was kind of a fun example. Again, a bit extreme, but it was kind of fun. But the reality of it is that there's going to be a lot of these things where the market has decided something is the case, and you can rail and yell yell into the void as loud as you want. Guys, this doesn't make sense. This isn't right. This isn't right. That doesn't mean it's going to change. I think at a certain point, it would probably be beneficial for a lot of us as collectors just to just enjoy it, just accept it. I did the video on my YouTube channel a little while ago where I said, look, market inefficiencies are a feature. And I stand by that. And I say, look, to a certain degree, you kind of have to just enjoy it. This is another example of a market inefficiency. I can't tell you that it makes sense. I went in and I bought a card, and I'll share it once the card comes in and everything. I bought a card from that undisputed product. Not that Matt Riddle one, but a different one. And I actually was in the running. I was trying to win a Topps Chrome card out of 10 for the exact same individual. And it actually sold. I was able to buy, though, the undisputed. I made an offer, and I was able to buy it for $10 less than the Topps Chrome version went for. So the gap wasn't quite that bad. But at the same time, it was kind of interesting that in open auction, it went very aggressively towards the tail end and jumped up the Topps Chrome, even at this stage, versus the undisputed one that had been just sitting there. It was available as a buy it now for the longest time for right around the same price. And I was actually able to get it for a little bit less, which to me was good. But that, if I was to put it in the open market, there's a good chance the card would sell for less than I bought it for. And I have to understand that and just expect that possibility. But I was happy with it. I was able to get the card that I wanted. I wasn't quite able to catch the other one because, like I said, it went up very aggressively right at the end, way more than I thought it would. It was kind of an interesting little situation where it was an opportunity to do apples to apples in the same day. It was an opportunity to test that thesis in the same day with 2 cards out of 10, but one is an undisputed product and one is the shiny refractor. So again, just seeing the comparison. I thought, though, that gold one was a little bit more interesting just because it was comparing an out of 10 to an out of 50. And the fact that the discrepancy was still in favor of the shiny refractor was kind of fun for me. Kind of a funny thing. Anyway, so I want to leave you with that. Just some thoughts on a Sunday night into a Monday morning. So I'm finishing this up here, and I'm going to put it up for Monday. Hopefully you get something out of this. Just understand that a lot of these markets are irrational. Just understand, like I said, I went in a lot of directions, but understand that markets are irrational. Sometimes we just have to kind of accept that and just take these market inefficiencies as a feature and just roll with it. I do also recommend to you, if you do have any interest in this genre of wrestling cards, I do suggest checking out the Wrestling with Cards YouTube channel. If you're watching the video version, you can see he's got less than 1,000 subscribers, 861 at the time I'm recording this. So if you have interest in it, check it out. Subscribe to them and check, because they do put together some great content, some podcasts and all kinds of fun things. So if you're interested in the genre, check it out and gives Zan some support as far as this is concerned. Otherwise, if you got any questions or any comments in it, feel free to throw that in the YouTube version of it. I do have more videos and things coming up on the YouTube channel. A lot of them aren't going to be based on wrestling cards because I only touch on that topic once in a while. But if you've got a question about it, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to cover it. I may do a little rummage video with the collection I put together so far, and I'll talk a little bit more about it when the AEW product is getting a little bit closer to release. So we'll definitely have more discussions about that. And otherwise, it'll be the regular kind of topics and live streams on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to do that as well. So regardless of which venue you come in, if you could leave a like, if it's a like, or subscribe to the channel if you're checking out the YouTube, leave a 5-star review or whatever it is if you're checking out the audio version. Otherwise, thanks very much as always. We'll catch you in the next one.